Chair Smith.
Good evening. I'll call to order the March 11, 2021 business meeting. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support tonight, Christina Twilliger, Clerk to the Board, and Stephen Madcore, County Counsel. Roll call. I'll start with the commissioners on Zoom. Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Inside the hearing room, Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here.
And Commissioner Schell is at the Fair Board meeting and will be joining this meeting shortly.
Okay, thank you. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us on the Zoom app for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. With that in mind, I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Orders will be enforced in this meeting. Gary, can you please tee up the first item?
Yes, Chair Smith. For those who are wishing to speak during public comment this evening, please notify your intent to do so by 6:05 p.m., which is 2 more minutes, and Christina will help you with that. We will start with a wildfire update. We have Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management, who will present. Go ahead, please, Nancy.
All right, thank you and good evening, everyone. So I just want to talk a little bit about the ice storm before I go into wildland fire. So we do have a joint PDA, which is a public damage assessment visit that's going to be by FEMA, and that will be the week of the 25th. So hopefully soon after they do that visit, they work with all of the counties that have turned in damages. We will hear if we're going to get a federal declaration or not. The other thing I want to let you know about the ice storm is that we do have our voucher program that is up and running. It started last Friday. Everything has been translated into Spanish, as well as, of course, we posted in English. We have 651 vouchers that were issued by the end of the day yesterday, and we're doing more promotion on that particular program. We have heard a lot of people say they're very appreciative, and we have some people actually coming to the buildings also to get vouchers. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more successful, but we just think we need to get the word out there a little bit more. Now, on to wildland fires. So I'm going to talk at the high level. I haven't given a lot of numbers high level recently for the state, and then we'll talk about here at Clackamas County. For the state, for FEMA assistance, there's 25,251 that have registered. Of those, 24,038 have been valid registrations. Of those, 6,954 were actual owners of their home, 17,060 were renters, and 24 have not been specified at this time. The assistant grant, the maximum grant, which is $35,000, there have been 542 max grants that have been given out in the state. There's several, of course, more that are under that, but they actually track the max grants pretty closely. So in the state, the total average amount per grant that has been sent out is 28,000. The total, is 28,199,315, and the average amount is 13,352. That's for replacement of homes, repair of homes, as well as rentals. For individual grants for needs that are, like funeral services, child care, medical assistance, those types of things. On the average, there's been 5,808,000 statewide. And, 508,000, and the average for individuals, 2,696. We have those that are age 65 or plus in the state, 3,681. Low income, which is self-reported, is 3,131. And those with access and functional needs is 1,803, which is also self-reported. Here in Clackamas County, we are looking at 2,370 that have registered. Of those, 2,322 are valid registrations. The breakdown, 982 are owners, 1,338 are renters, and 2 have not been specified. And we have had 4 max grants here in Clackamas County. The average amount for replacement and repair or rental countywide is $540,794. The average amount is $5,518. For individual assistance, for here, the whole Clackamas County is $164,167 and $1,283 average per person. So those are the numbers. I know that was a lot of numbers, but there's a lot of money coming in from FEMA, and we continue to watch those numbers. We do have one family that we're still providing rental assistance for, and we also have the state that's providing some assistance as well for those that need rental assistance. In addition, to let you know what is going on with our debris management program with the wildland fires, which has been slower to get off the ground than we wanted. We're working through a lot of issues right now with ODOT, including the communication with a homeowner. We settled today that we're going to actually do those communications because we think it's really important for the county to be that person that makes that first link with them. And then the contractor will come in and talk to them after that. There's also some issues that we're working through when it comes to septic tanks as well as the foundations and the removal of those foundations. So there's a lot going on. Nothing has been removed yet, but we're getting much closer. And we have, I think, we have 50, I think it's 58 right of entry forms from out of the 62 that were destroyed. So we have a lot of work to do there, but it is starting to move forward. And that is my report.
Well, great. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
Questions?
No questions.
Okay. Next, COVID-19 updates. Nancy as well will present along with Philip Mason Joyner, the county's public health director, and he is on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. And Christina will be pulling up the slides for us. So we have a lot going on this week as well, and Philip will fill you in on all of our clinics and the things that we're doing there. Next slide, please. So our current case death rate here in the country is just under is almost 29 million. And we have a total deaths in the country at 526,213. Oregon is now at 158,291 and just over 2,300 deaths. Next slide, please. So our current case, a death date here locally at Clackamas County is 13,566, and we are now at 191 deaths here in Clackamas County. Multnomah County is just over 32,551 deaths, and Washington County is at just over, or is 21,500, and they have 218 deaths. Next slide, please. So I'm happy to report that our case count did go down this week. So we had that little bump up last week, but we were back down to 137 cases for the week. And that, of course, next slide, please, translates into our hospital system as well. And I did attend a regional hospital meeting this week, and the hospitals are looking really good. And as you can see, our numbers are going up there too, of the number of ICU beds that are becoming available more and more. So again, that trend is a really good trend to see when we're talking about our COVID cases. Next slide, please. This is a slide, of course, for our positive patients here in the Northwest Oregon hospitals. You see the little jagged line down there at the bottom, but it's not rising significantly. And of course, there's always going to be ups and downs. Even before COVID, you see a lot of ups and downs in those cases. I mean, I'm sorry, not before COVID. A lot of ups and downs, just because we have people in and out of the hospitals for just different reasons for COVID as well. The next slide, our county metrics. We are going to remain in moderate risk. We just got our data in, of course, on Monday. We're now at let's see here, at 83.6 and 3.4% positivity rate. And of course, if you look at the chart, we have just been either holding really steady there at the cases per population. Our positivity rate has been decreasing, which is really good news for us as well. And Philip, I think you're taking the next slide.
Thank you, Nancy, and good evening, everyone. Yes, it's great news that we're a moderate risk. We're headed in the right direction. It's been a while since I've shared information in terms of active outbreaks, COVID-19 outbreaks in our county. I thought that this was interesting to look over last month and to see the connection with our vaccine efforts. So in yellow here is our long-term care facilities and retirement, which usually has throughout the pandemic accounted for about half of our outbreaks. So 2 or more cases connected to one another. Our disease investigators, through their contact tracing works, are able to identify that source. And of course, we're going to monitor super closely the green line on schools. We are worried about spring break with schools opening up, in-person instruction, and right now have 6 active outbreaks in schools, local school communities that we are working through. Next slide, please. So over 70,000 now of our community members are in process to receive their vaccinations. So that's wonderful news. And we are making progress in terms of getting some additional vaccine supply into our region and then also into our local communities. Next slide. Just as a reminder in terms of our role at the county, so our public health division, we are responsible for when we, right now vaccine is going to the region's hospital systems and it's coming to us locally at the health department. We are able to coordinate and push vaccine out to local pharmacies, to clinics, to other partners that are enrolled vaccine providers to the state. We have over 40 of those locations now in the county, and we have staff that have a lot of subject expertise on vaccine administration and provide them with technical assistance. We also work hard to connect folks who are eligible to the vaccine to get them access to appointments. We either host, and we plan to be hosting quite a bit more community clinics, or work with our partners to put those on, and promoting communications campaigns, working to address concerns that folks who may be hesitant about getting the vaccine, that the vaccine is safe, that it's highly effective. We're really fortunate that we have these to help move us out of the pandemic and move forward as a community. Next slide, please. In terms of some allocation updates, so the first part of this year, January to present, we've been receiving 1,700 doses every week locally, and 15,000 of the doses have gone to the mass vaccination clinics in Portland, either at the Oregon Convention Center or at the drive-thru at the Portland airport. So we have lots of plans in place. We've had limited supplies and a lot of demand. We continue to advocate with the state to get information about utilization and concerns about our community members being able to access the options in Portland. As vaccine supplies are opening up, as long-term care facilities are being taken care of and getting their vaccines, it frees up supplies as we move through the process that we've been able to get some more doses locally to address some of those concerns. And then this slide isn't accurate, so I apologize for that. It's not March 22nd anymore, it's the week of March 28th. But the week of March 28th, we've learned from the state is when we can expect to receive locally 7 to 10.5 thousand doses per week, every week moving forward, which is fantastic news that we can implement our plan. And then the 2 options in Portland will move from 15,000 doses every week up to 21,000 doses every week. Next slide. In terms of what we are doing locally, so we've had these plans in place, working really hard to solidify the partnerships, get the contracts fully secured and agreements in place, and move forward with our local vaccination efforts. So the week of March 28th is when this will really, really ramp up and the community will start to see this. We partnered with Tualatin Valley Fire and the community college at their Wilsonville campus, where they have a weekly clinic. Yesterday, there was a 1,000-dose clinic that filled up really quickly of eligible folks that we were able to connect and get appointments for. We are planning to weekly have in a Canby at the Clackamas Fairgrounds, a clinic at the town center. We partnered with Clackamas Fire Districts. We'll actually be using their parking garage to do that. And we will be in Malala a couple times a week at the high school. We'll also be up in Sandy at the high school. So those are the larger, either drive through or just set up in a way that we can quickly get a lot of folks vaccinated. And we know that some folks prefer smaller, more intimate options, similar to going to your doctor's office. So we will have a permanent site in place in Milwaukee. We have our Oregon City location set up. That will continue. We've also been vaccinating folks with the limited supplies that we have up in Sandy at the school-based health center. And then, of course, local pharmacies continue to be available. In terms of other activities, we have partnered with some different medical providers who have mobile teams that can go out into retirement centers and independent living. Because remember, in December and January, we were vaccinating all of the long-term care facilities that had nursing staff, but that left, a lot of additional older adults who are still needing vaccines. We have over 100 adult foster homes that we are working to vaccinate with our public health nurses that are going out into the communities where they live and providing vaccinations. We also intend to provide pop-up events, so not regular, consistent every week events, but perhaps we're talking with a lot of partners about going into other communities that aren't reflected here and providing vaccination clinics time to time. We're also working with the nonprofits in the community to do outreach to our houseless population. We have a few low-income senior housing facilities that will work to get vaccinated. Farm workers, so going out into farms with those mobile teams to get them vaccinated at their workplaces. And then folks who are in transitional housing as well. So this is what we're planning locally. It does not include the pharmacies who are receiving vaccine directly from manufacturing from the federal partnership. It doesn't include the federally qualified health centers that are also going to be receiving it directly from manufacturing. And this doesn't reflect the 21,000 doses going into the mass large vaccination clinics in Portland. Next slide, please. Just a reminder from last week, because the process did change last week in terms of scheduling the mass vaccination clinics in Portland. So now instead of using that chat bot screening tool, you only need to go to this website, getvaccinated.oregon.gov, sign up one time, and you will be notified through different methods to get your appointment scheduled when it becomes available. And if you're looking for local opportunities, on our website, clackamas.us/coronavirus/vaccine, it does provide a current list of the local pharmacies, which all have their own scheduling systems. You can try to get an appointment there. And then next slide. We have stood up our call center, and we are now, in the last week, we do have the wait list set up and working. We did have a bit of a snag over the weekend where the voicemail was not updated to reflect this information, so apologies on that. That's on us, and I know it caused a little bit of frustration, but the wait list is working. You can call that number if you, we could really use the community help sharing that. We are communicating this out with our public and government affairs team, but for folks who don't have the internet access, don't have the technology to be able to use the state's website, for folks who have transportation concerns, language access concerns, or they just want a local option closer to home and they want to wait later this month into April, these are the options. This is an option available to get access to these local opportunities. There'll be a wait list, and as these local community clinics that we're standing up the last week of March into the spring and summer. Those will be opportunities locally. It is possible, if you have the flexibility and the ability to get into Portland, it's possible that can be a faster route, but these options are available for you as well. And my last piece of information today, the CDC this week did release guidance for fully vaccinated people. So we certainly want to encourage folks that there is a great benefit to being fully vaccinated. 2 weeks after your shot, you are able to, if you're fully vaccinated, visit with other fully vaccinated people indoors without wearing masks or physical distancing. Visit with unvaccinated people who are at low risk of severe illness without having to wear masks or physical distancing. And you're also able to refrain from having to quarantine if you've been exposed to COVID-19. And if you don't have symptoms, you don't need to be tested. Also, the next slide. There's a lot still unknown the way this pandemic going, so people should still continue when you're out in public, when you're visiting with folks who are unvaccinated that are higher risk. And if you're visiting multiple households, we still want to encourage folks to wear their mask and practice physical distancing as much as possible to keep up those public health precautions. We still want to encourage folks to limit their in-person gatherings when they're really large or medium-sized. And if you are experiencing symptoms, it really helps us that folks get tested so we know what the real community spread is looking like, and to continue to follow any travel restrictions in our state. The Oregon Health Authority, they will pretty soon be releasing more details and specifics based on this framework, but that is what the CDC announced nationally this week. And that is my presentation for this week, where Nancy and I are happy to answer any questions.
Board, do we have any questions for Nancy Bush or Philip Mason Joyner regarding the reports?
I don't see any hands raised.
Hey, sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand, but I'm having a hard time on this computer.
Oh, okay.
Let me do it right now. Okay.
Did it work?
There. Did it work?
Okay.
Sorry about that. Hi, Philip. Got a few questions. You had said that there are 15,000 vaccines going to the Portland Convention Center mass vaccination site. Is that just Clackamas County's share, or is that for the whole region?
That is for the whole region.
Okay.
15,000 every week.
So that was my first question. My second question, wow, it's like things have really ramped up. And so I am just, oh my gosh, like taking a deep breath for you and your staff, because it's a lot that's going on, especially with, but you've been ready. I know a lot of planning has gone in to set up all the vaccination sites around the county. And I'm just so glad to see that, because I have heard that people are concerned about traveling to the convention center. That doesn't seem like a very good idea, or to the airport and waiting in long lines in a car isn't something that people want to do, and getting scheduled with the pharmacies also can be somewhat challenging. So I'm really excited about all of the options now that are coming online, or not online, but in person out there. But I'm curious, so we had a briefing on, I believe it was Tuesday, about the what we can see within the Biden rescue plan. And I'm just curious, now that that has been passed and we actually know what that is, how will that affect the vaccines that we get and the distribution? Have we been able to do an analysis on that?
No, not yet.
Since it was just today, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, in terms of, well, we're still waiting on December's federal relief package for the funding to come to us locally, and we're anticipating around $5.9 million to help with continuing contact tracing and vaccine distribution work. So our understanding from the state is we can expect that in our April local public health authority agreement, which will come to you for approval to accept those funds. But yeah, we haven't done the full analysis. I know there'll be direct payments to local governments, and then there will be dedicated funding for vaccine distribution, but I don't know at this point the specifics around that.
Okay, and so, and with that, without knowing the specifics, you probably don't have a time frame for when we expect that everybody who wants the vaccine will have the vaccine in Clackamas County?
No, but we are more than doubling vaccine supply in the coming weeks. So as a state, more folks are of course becoming eligible, but feeling more and more confident that we're moving really in a good direction. And also thinking ahead about there's going to be a point where supply is going to surpass demand, and also doing that really advanced planning to prepare for that too.
Okay, and then my last question, I don't know if you know about this, and now I don't know where I read this article, but I understand that there are opportunities for people to volunteer to help seniors get vaccinated. And I don't know if this is happening in Clackamas County or if it's a statewide support system, but are you aware of that?
I might need to talk to our social services staff on more details. I do know that they have volunteers that are helping with the callbacks on the wait list and getting folks scheduled to local appointments into the mass vaccination clinics. So we are helping locally our seniors navigate the systems. But if there's another program statewide or nationally around that topic, I might need to talk to some other folks to get that info.
Okay, I am interested in it. The article that I read was about, was it in the paper? Does anybody else see this? I can't, gosh, sorry, I don't remember. But it was the story about an attorney who had volunteered and was assisting, and that looked like a very legitimate process that was being implemented. But my concern is just seniors being vulnerable and just making sure there are safeguards in place as, people might, I don't want to see scams over people thinking they're getting help, getting vaccinated, and then giving personal information or things like that. So that was just something that I just wanted to throw out there as a concern, and leave that with you to ponder amongst all the other things that you have to think about.
Thank you. I will definitely think about that and would love to see that article. I haven't seen it.
Okay, thank you. That's
Any
all I've
further
got.
questions from commissioners?
Not show any hands raised.
Nancy, thank you very much for your very comprehensive report. Appreciate it a lot. During my conversations with, my weekly conversations with the tri-chairs of Multnomah and Washington County, it's a weekly call with Leah Horner, the governor's representative, and I made a plea to her to get more vaccinations to Clackamas County pharmacies, so our seniors and those people who want them can get them. Likewise, I've been working this week with Nancy Bush in her office to try to get some clinics open in Clackamas County, and it looks like we at the Clackamas Town Center, that is going to be realized along with Malala High School, Sandy High School, and Clackamas Fairgrounds. So we're moving ahead on that. What we need is vaccination to our local areas. I also made a plea to the governor's office that a lot of our citizens traveling to the convention center for their vaccination, even though they're Clackamas County residents, is quite problematic. And I'm getting a lot of complaints about that. And I don't blame them from complaining about that. So as Nancy said, I believe that Walmart is going to be starting to distribute some more vax. Is that right?
Yeah, that is what I'm heard. They're expecting that, and they're working that out right now.
Great, great. So I think a lot was accomplished this week in very little amount of time. And this is an area that none of us have ever been down before, and we're learning. And we've had some very, very strict rules applied to us in our activities on this. But it's a national supply chain. It really is the issue. And we have a third supplier coming on, Johnson & Johnson. Hopefully that will help. But I know you don't want to hear this, but I guess we're just going to have to be patient a little while longer to get our vax. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
Thank you.
you, Philip. Gary, what's up next?
Next chair is the consent agenda. And Christina, would you please read the consent agenda by title only?
Yes, today your consent agenda, Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for dental health expansion with the health centers. Care Oregon will pay Clackamas County up to $3 per member per month. With Department of Transportation and Development, approval of amendment number 2 to contract number 1622 with Harper Hoof Peterson Regelis Incorporated for the roadway design plans for D Street. This amendment would add $138,180 for a total contract value not to exceed $839,218. This is funded through the North Clackamas Revitalization Area Urban Renewal District. No general funds are involved. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. For business and community services, Enterprise Zone 5-year abatement agreement with Moses Lake Industries, the City of Milwaukee, and the City of Gladstone. The county will forego $14,910 over a 5-year period for the tax abatement. Under tourism and cultural affairs, execution of the funding agreement with the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, CCAA, as approved in the fiscal year 2021 budget. A payment in the amount of $254,455 will be issued to the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. It was included and approved for the fiscal year 2021 budget and will include general funds. And that is your...
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl has just joined us from his appointment. Does any commissioner wish to remove any item off the consent agenda? May I have a motion?
Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Commissioner Scholl has moved to approve the consent agenda. Commissioner Fisher has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Christina, would you please call the poll?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Perfect. Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next up is public communication. The portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public comment to bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. However, we will not be reading them at the business meeting due to time constraints. I will take the in-person testimony first, and I have 4 cards. Up first is Joe Haverkamp. Would you please come to the dais, state your name and residence, please? Oh, that one right there. Joe? Joe, right there?
Oh, there. Oh, okay. Musical chairs, huh?
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Joe Haverkamp, Chair Smith and Commissioners, and I want to tell Chair Smith she's done an excellent job. As a former city councilor and retired from the medical field for 35 years, a little bit about me, just very knowledgeable of what goes on in the community. And regarding Commissioner Scholl, I want to say shame on Sonia. I've had so many people have called me in the community, will you go and say something, Joe, and will you say something for this commission? And so I have, but they want her to apologize to Commissioner Scholl. And the man was elected by the Clackamas County citizens. Since when did we lose our First Amendment? Freedom of speech. What we need to do in this committee is to get on with county commission business. Also, why? Many times I and others watch the commission and there's only Tootie, Smith, and Mark Scholl, and I'm wondering, where are the other commissioners? Tonight I see that that you have come tonight, but normally it looks bare. Since they opened up where you can come to the meetings, I know Paul Salas right now has a valid excuse. The commission also is paid almost $100,000 a year. So when I was in office, if we missed 2 meetings, we would be off as a counselor without a valid excuse. And it had to be okayed by the mayor or whoever is in charge. Going back to Commissioner Schell, he is a lieutenant colonel, and I have a stepdaughter that is a colonel. There is no way this is hard work. This is dedication. And when they're in all the wars that have been going on, how can you ever put them through all the humility that has been going on? And I know there is a small group of people that is orchestrating this. But I have one more thing because I'm running out of
Joe,
time.
I'm sorry you have reached your 3 minutes, and I really
Okay.
do need to be consistent. If you would like to come back next week and finish your comments, that would be wonderful.
you.
Thank you, Joe Haverkamp. John Knotts, you're up. Please come, state your name and residence for the record, and likewise, you have...
My residence, I just let me out of the home for a couple hours. Great segue, Joe. I don't know Joe, but that was a great segue. John Knotts, I live in Sandy, Oregon, out in the country between Sandy and Estacada. And I don't know if you need to know anything more about me, a work experience. We're not going to waste time talking about that or anything else. So I have a couple questions, concerns. End of December, first part of January, I started hearing things, newspaper articles, comments. People said something has to be done. I didn't know that much about it. Until the second week in January, I made several calls on the general answering machine here at the commissioner's office. Somebody called me and called me immediately. After about 3 calls, I got a call the following week before the playoff, from a lady. Apparently answers the phone. Receptionist, I don't know, don't care, it's irrelevant. Told me I could get on the computer and talk to the commissioners. We have COVID and everybody's busy. And I said, that's the last thing I want to hear. I want somebody to call me. Now, I've spoken to several of the commissioners. Nobody received my messages. But I find it very interesting that one evening, that following week, would have been the 4th week, I received a call from a commissioner. Asked me if I had a few concerns. I said, yes. And I said, I'm tired of the cancel culture. I'm tired of blackballing. I'm tired of slander, or whatever else you want to call it. And I was instructed that basically a feeling of the commissioner was that Mark Shaw was unfit to serve. Well, unless you're a psychiatrist and you can give me some proof, that's a tough one to cover. And to continue to tell me that he's unfit, want to know if I know what he said and done in the past, I said, you wouldn't like me if you know what I've done in the past in my service in Vietnam. I have opinions too. Because I don't like open borders and illegal immigration doesn't make me a racist. Because I don't care for ISIS or beheading or mercy killings doesn't make me Islamophobic. We've taken this thing to limits that are beyond acceptability. And let me finish with this very quickly. We have a problem with the VAC. We have a problem with your budget committee, and we can discuss that later. Because this dais and the VAC that I was on for 3 years at the request, not because I need something to do, at a request of Brenda Durbin, I joined it. I've got some things to say about that. You need one person over there that needs to turn in a resignation. She's biased, okay? Here, I got a call from a a commissioner explaining to me that Mark Schell is unfit and I should know some things. And I said, if there's something that you need to have me read, I'd be glad to accept it. She wanted my email. I said, no, I don't have an email. I gave my daughter's. Several days later, I hadn't received anything. No paperwork. Now, I called down here on that weekend, and I'm running out of time. That's what I don't like about 3 minutes. It's unprofessional, unethical, And if it was on a bench somewhere, bet you, as I mentioned to Commissioner, I'd be talking to the Commission on Judicial Fitness.
Yeah. John, thank you. I appreciate your testimony. You can come back next week if you'd like to finish. Christine?
And I'm sorry, I missed Commissioner Fisher's hand.
Yeah,
after
Commissioner
the
Fisher.
first-
Yeah, thank you,
The
Chair.
red light is on now.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I wanted to invite Joe Haverkamp to have further conversation with me so that I can provide some explanation. My concern has always been about the people of Clackamas County, and it's been my position that if they would have known of Commissioner Scholl's Facebook posts and his positions, that they would have not have elected him. So it's not ever an issue of cancel culture or freedom of speech, but I would like to further engage with you on these conversations, and I really deeply appreciate your testimony, and JR, I so appreciate your testimony as well, because I was really hoping to engage with you over the comments so that I could understand from your perspective, and I would still welcome that. I am very open to understanding how those comments, the way that they're portrayed with the memes on the Facebook blog, can be perceived other than really hurtful. Because when I saw it, honestly, I didn't believe it. I was very upset with the reporter. I said, "What are you doing? Where did you get this? This can't possibly be true." Because I had opportunity to sit with Mark Scholl, to try to get to know him, to work with him, and I was looking very forward to it. I just couldn't believe it. So my view isn't about stopping speech, or canceling culture. I think all views are important, and I would never advocate not expressing them. But just for the people of Clackamas County to have the representation that I think that they would vote for had they known. And that's the conversation. And if our staff didn't get you that blog, I've actually been following up. It's like I really wanted to have that conversation with you because I really value your perspective. Yes. So I called, he wanted a call from a commissioner, and I was very interested in talking with anyone who had any concerns. So thank you both thank you so much for coming. No, I just wanted to respond, and it's up to the chair.
Go ahead. Commissioner Fisher has invited this discourse, is what I'm going to say.
I'm concerned, one, when you called, you said you're returning my call. I'd ask for everybody else, which leads me to believe one of two things. Either everybody else got the message, which I found out they didn't, or the message was intercepted and passed on.
No.
That's conjecture. I do not think that this is a referendum on personality, and when you tell me that you think, here's what I think. Should have said, I think you need to turn in a resignation. I've been around long enough and involved in enough legal aspects of life that what happened here has to be straightened out. This is not for you to determine who works here. And let me repeat this, because I'm going to throw you homework. You get a hold of Pamplin Entertainment.
Okay, I think I'm going to, thank you.
They passed the article on me, too, and I called them on it. I don't trust the media. We don't try people
Thank you.
in the media. We don't
Yeah.
try judicial.
So, Mr. Knotts,
Commissioner
let's
Fisher?
continue this conversation offline. I would really welcome that.
I'm not sure, but that's okay.
No, I do.
I think you
Truly.
folks would be a wonderful opportunity to talk after the meeting. This is really an unusual situation we have ourselves in. Yeah, I would agree. It is very unusual. We're going to try to continue with our business meeting. Thank you very much. You all are invited back to talk again. Up next, Rick Dodge. Please come up to the microphone, state your name and residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Rick Dodge, I live in Milwaukee. I'm a native Oregonian and not a happy one. And I have to agree with John and Jill because I think there was an alternative reason that Mark Schell has been asked to do what they want him to do. I appreciate his life experiences as a veteran and just a regular citizen. And I voted, number one, to put balance in this commission. And again, I want to be involved too. Now, I open up a letter, and this is my secondary thing that I think a lot of people, matter of fact, I hear it all the time. I get my vehicle registration up last month, $180 vehicle registration, which I didn't get to vote on. And that example is a trend that's been going on throughout the state with what I call, and it may be off the mark here, but taxation without representation. The middle class is just getting taxed to death. We've got a beer and wine tax that the Salem's trying to come up with, cap and trade, et cetera, imposed on us without our input is absolutely anti-Oregonian, anti-American, and it's getting to the point where we can't afford to live here anymore. These folks down in the Albany area, matter of fact, Senator Beauchart, who's a farmer, a rancher, claims that farmers are the highest taxed business occupation in the state. And based on what I've seen, she's absolutely right. But as far as us locally, I think that the consideration for us middle-class taxpayers needs our input with our vote, for crying out loud. Now, as far as the budgeting goes, we aren't part of that. That's your thing. But the rest of it, I'm just asking for the consideration of every situation that comes up that we have the opportunity to vote. And I think, again, I'm going to go back to Mark Schell for a quick second. Balance is what we need here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Our last in-person testimony is Danette Van Dusen. Would you please come up and state your name and residence, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Danette Van Dusen. I'm a resident of Sandy, Oregon. I'm a small business owner, and I'm here on behalf of my family and many other people who are my constituents and also the neighbors and people who I help in the community. They weren't all able to come tonight. Ms. Smith, we think you're doing a great job, and we appreciate it, and we've all voted for you. Mr. Schell, the same goes for you. Thank you for your service, sir. I'm here on your behalf. Ma'am, the community's a little upset with you. I can't lie, okay? And I understand, but I would like to say something very short. I agree with all of these people and every single word that they said, okay? We're able as adults to look in the internet to see what Mark Schell is really all about. We are all capable of looking at social media. We're all capable of finding dirt on every single one of you as well, okay? Just like you can go dig out and pull the onion peels back, and then we have Chris Waller of NWEA making sure that she says something so terrible about Mark Schell that he's going to be thrown out of his office and his duties. That's not going to happen, I hope, because there are a whole lot of people in our community who are in an uproar right now. Out of the article that came out of the Sandy Post this morning, I have written many times at Sandy Post. I didn't do it today. I'm here instead. We need to fix the issue. Mr. Schell, we appreciate what you've been doing. We don't have anything to say about your past or what you said. We know you're a good man, and we'd like you to go forward and lead us. Thank you very much for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. Christina, do we have some online folks wanting to testify via Zoom or phone call?
We do. Thank you, Chair Smith. Now is the time for general comment relating to any county business, and I do have a list of registered participants, and I will call them in the order that I have received their registration. We have 6 participants. First up is going to be Chris Waller. Chris, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Russell Collier is a pastor in Sandy, Oregon at the Rivers of Living Water United Pentecostal Church, which holds periodic rallies opposing LGBTQ rights. On August 30th, 2020, it held a rally at which Mark Schell was a featured speaker. He stated that Americans have become untethered from their values, that in order to be strong, society must hold Judeo-Christian values. He stated that what was happening in Portland and Chicago was a result of losing these values, not, of course, because Black people have experienced systematic discrimination and violence. Immediately after he finished his speech, Pastor Collier spoke, and this is just part of what he said.
That perverse lifestyles of homosexuality, lesbianism, bisexuality, transsexuality.
Gary Schmidt, is that even a proper use of our meeting time?
Sexual
Stop
abuser,
it. Mute it.
pedophiles, people committing bestiality.
Stop it right now. Stop that.
And I disagree with that man, so we can cut that crap off.
Okay, folks, just settle down a minute. It is one thing to have people call up and testify on their own behalf. I will not ever accept that type of vitriol, hatred, and abuse at my business meeting. That will not be allowed. Go on to the next caller. She's done.
All righty. The next person is going to be Bill Marked. Bill, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name's Bill Mart. I'm speaking on behalf of the Stafford Hamlet, which is what we're doing in the Hamlet is far more tame than what you folks are facing here tonight, certainly. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you what we've undertaken most recently, which is a community meeting featuring an arborist to give our attendees a broad overview of what tree damage results can be expected out of our most recent ice, or I guess freezing rain catastrophe. He also was very willing to answer questions. To keep our constituents informed, we have scheduled 2 more community meetings. One that relates to the ice damage, and we've got a PGE field representative to help us understand what the community can expect from in the form of improvements after the recent freezing rainstorm, and what we as citizens can do to be partners in making our area less vulnerable. We're also hoping to have the newly elected sheriff, Angela Brandenburg, tell the attendees what her priorities are and to address citizens' concerns. On a more agrarian level, we have vegetable seeds, which are being procured for the community through one of our active members, Rick Cook. He's reached out to OSU's Food Hero for the season. There's their little program, and it works towards a more active involvement of the community, and we're going to spread these seeds out to members of our hamlet that have an interest in growing their own vegetables. During the last month, we also had a PGA meeting, Public and Government Affairs, for those of you that aren't familiar, and they entertained all three of the hamlets in the county. We now, I think, have a little better understanding of their goals and how we can all work together more efficiently. Out of that meeting, we did discuss some of the limitations we all experienced through the last ice storm, and some of the suggestions that came about will hopefully we'll be able to implement in the near future. I think the consensus was we can take care of our own if we just have a little bit more planning and a better communication going forward. As a whole, I think the county was pretty overwhelmed by this. Again, a fire of epic proportions 6 months ago, and now an ice storm of almost the same. Definitely the county's working its way through a lot of trials.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. I really appreciate your comments. You raise a lot of questions on a lot of issues and rightly point out Clackamas County has had 3 declared emergencies in 11 months, and we haven't even got out of one, and we had a wildfire, and we're not out of that, and we have an ice storm of which we will be cleaning up for a very long time. We're doing the best we can with our road crew. We have Water Environmental Services, have surveyed hundreds of ponds, retention ponds in the county, and they're bringing in a contract crew to try to remove the trees, stumps, and everything that could prove to be hazardous. So we're continuing to work on that. Gary, do you have anything else to add to what Bill?
We have a debris cleanup program for the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County. It went live last week, almost a week ago, where residents can receive up to a $30 voucher to help clean up your property or have someone come and do it for you. So that's on our county website, and materials have been posted in the paper and other sources. So that's one small way we can help with the debris cleanup.
Okay, thank you. Up next, Christina.
Thank you, Bill. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. This is going to be Jahan Azurjavani. I'm sorry, I totally butchered your last name. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Smith and Commissioners. I'm here to ask for the immediate resignation of Commissioner Mark Scholl from the board and ask the other commissioners to follow Commissioner Fisher's lead to continue to hold him accountable for his anti-Muslim and LGBTQ rhetoric. As you said, my name is Jahan Shervan. I live in downtown Milwaukee with my wife and kids. I was raised in Oak Grove and graduated from Expo in '99. I currently work as a lieutenant firefighter at a fire department that serves a portion of Clackamas County. When the 1996 floods happened, I was able to volunteer. What I experienced in this time was of adversity, where individuals in a community that were positive, selfless, caring, compassionate, empathetic, willing to sacrifice own gain to help out others, and a true love for their neighbors. What I also saw were people from different creeds, socioeconomic status, sexuality, race, ethnicity come together, standing shoulder to shoulder, laying sandbag after sandbag, delivering food to people without power, and checking on their neighbors for their safety. From that time forward, I knew this was a community I wanted to raise my family and continue to provide public service to. We were united. Commissioner Scholl's words are divisive and threaten the very core that makes living in Clackamas County special. I started my path to the fire service in the year 2000. I'm a proud Iranian American. September 11, 2001 happened. Like most Americans, I sat and witnessed something that is hard to put into words. As the day unfolded, speculations were being made of who performed the attack. There was a lot of anti-Muslim Middle Eastern rhetoric. Because of my physical appearance and name, I was made a target. I was called a sand nigger. Was told by an individual while I was in uniform that they don't trust or like any Middle Eastern. Iran was dubbed one of the 3 axis of evils. Inevitably, people thought we were all evil. And these words and thoughts were planted by the leaders of the government. Commissioner Scholl's words matter. As our country and cities are moving towards being more diverse, equitable, inclusive, shouldn't the Board of Commissioners be the example? Shouldn't the boards hold themselves to a higher standard? Shouldn't you have zero tolerance on anything that threatens the community from being free of judgment, hate, and discrimination? Shouldn't the moral and ethical compass of the elected officials always be pointed north? I applaud Commissioner Fisher's renewed stance to continue to censor Commissioner Scholl and exclude him from any of the boards. For the rest of the commissioners, I urge that your moral and ethical compass not stray and continue to censor Scholl while he continues to breed a toxic culture. And is this the culture that you want to breed? Would you tolerate a police officer who posted anti-BLM messages on Facebook or a firefighter posting anti-gay slurs on social media? My guess is no. So why is Commissioner Scholl any different? The county has an opportunity to do what's right and send a strong message not only to the residents of Clackamas, but become a leader in the region of diversity, equality, and inclusion. An opportunity for positive, everlasting change. But it cannot happen as Commissioner Scholl remains in his seat. So I ask the board, please keep your moral and ethical compass north, and for Commissioner Scholl to do the right thing and resign so the county can continue
Thank
the
you very
community
much,
as every member of the
Jahan.
public
Jahan,
knows.
thank you very much for your testimony. Up next.
Up next is Bill Ware. Bill, we'll go ahead and bring you in. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you. This is Bill Ware from Damascus. Good evening, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Last week, 2 veterans came before this commission to voice their concern about the unproductive path that the Veterans Advisory Committee has taken. They recommended dismantling the committee and rebuilding committee members from scratch. Their interest in this matter, to me, came across as heartfelt and worthy of evaluation. Our county administrator has been charged with looking into the matter and making recommendations. But as this is unfolding, there already appears to be an attempt to predetermine the outcome of this investigation before it gets off the ground. Commissioner Schrader, during commissioner comments, instructed the county administrator to talk to her first before proceeding. She doesn't want the restart of the Veterans Committee. But only moments before, 2 distinguished veterans had just taken time out of their days to advocate complete restructuring of the committee. The county administrator needs to have unbiased, factual information before making any decision. For their part, the commissioners should not interfere and base their decision on the completed report. I'd like to see included in this investigation that all the committee testimony is based on factual information, not political advocacy or feelings. No committee member or commissioner should be subjected to a star chamber-like interrogation by other attendees. All should be treated with respect and courtesy. There should be no pressure or interference for a predetermined conclusion by either commission or department heads. The county administrator, again, is to have complete independence. That this committee and others each should have their own county website that posts their charter, their upcoming meetings, agendas, members' names with simple access to the public. Meetings should be open to the public, online or Zoom, for transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Up next.
Up next, looks like we have Les Poole. Let me go ahead and grab him. So Les, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. The sun's out, and good to see the COVID numbers are improved. And as we need to move forward, there's some recurring themes here. And one of them is that Mr. Scholl wouldn't have been elected had people known more. One thing I can promise everyone is that if folks had known more about what was going on down here, and frankly, the poor, flawed decision-making by Commissioner Fisher, who is the last remaining member of the Team Bernard, I think is a good name to dub them. And it's very clear she's attempting, at least I believe it's clear, that she's focused on overturning the results of the election. And what troubles me is not that she's involved or any arguments about free speech. It's the dogged persistence and dedication I see from her on that issue that I've seen has been lacking at so many critical junctures. And Mr. Dodge, who spoke earlier, he spoke for tens of thousands of folks. And it's unfortunate because, Sonia's a likable person, but we didn't elect anyone to be a political operative. We certainly rejected the spending habits, the lack of transparency, and a number of other things that were going on around here in the toxic culture that existed long before Mr. Scholl was elected. Long before. So I will conclude with a message for everyone. There is plenty of video of attacks on citizens and residents, including me, that were defended by someone who I consider to be an extreme hypocrite and frankly a partisan who is ill-suited to continue as a commissioner. And it's unfortunate it's come to this, but if Mark Scholl needs to go, so does Sonia Fisher. I hope I have a few seconds left because tonight I really wanted to make a simple request. But here we are off in this again. I would request again that a resolution be created to oppose the rioting or potential rioting that regardless of anything that happens in the future, what's gone on in Portland has not been addressed. So I would really like to see the county make a statement about that when the opportunity arises. And let's all hang in there, people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Christine.
Les. And let's see, our last person is Christine Kennedy. Christine, you have 3 minutes if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you to Chair Smith and to the commissioners and to the staff. I appreciate having an opportunity to speak this evening. I just want to say that I come from a military family. My mother and father were both in World War II. My other background is healthcare. And I guess this is truly an opportunity to learn about civics and county government and representation. And I just would like to say that Ms. Smith has stated several times that how challenging the situation has been. And I know that this has been a very difficult year. It's been just a year since the emergency was announced, March 11th. So we're all suffering through this together. And I guess I would like to say that we're not unique with this. And our county government right now has a huge leadership challenge. But this is the reality that we're in right now. And I would like to remind everybody that there was a unanimous agreement from the Board of Commissioners to ask Mr. Schell to resign. And in addition, the entire group voted to censure him. So now we're in a discussion about committee assignments. And there's been a lot of comments tonight about the February 25th meeting. And I listened to the entire meeting that was mediated and facilitated. And I think there were a lot of comments made. Mr. Schell was given an opportunity to respond. And all he could say was, give me proof I'm a racist. He didn't acknowledge anybody's feelings and what they were trying to express to him. And I think that if people were to listen to that meeting, they would see that he was given plenty of opportunities to become more self-aware and not just to draw a line in the sand. So people, we're all in this together. Sonia Fisher is not the only person that's raised the issue. She's the person now that's talking about committee assignments. If we are in a representative situation and a committee or an advisory group does not feel comfortable with Mr. Schell as the commissioner representative, what are they to do? We still have free speech. We still have the right to ask questions. So I would just encourage everybody to stop saying shame on Sonia Fisher. I think that's offensive. And I would just like to say, we need to get on with business, but I think that this is a serious issue and that people need to understand it's a serious issue. So thank you for the time. And I appreciate all the hard work that's going on, especially in the EOC. They've done a great job with the emergencies.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
Anybody else?
That is it.
Okay. Now we go on to the update from our County Administrator, Gary Schmidt. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I have one piece of good news to share with you tonight from Clackamas County. There's many good news, but the one I'm sharing tonight is our Clackamas County Public Health Division has achieved accreditation status for another 5 years through the National Public Health Accreditation Board. This national accreditation program works to transform public health practices by acknowledging performance improvement, strong infrastructure, and innovation. In addition to meeting rigorous quality standards and measures, our public health team demonstrated its capacity to evolve and improve, along with partners, on behalf of the communities we serve, and especially demonstrating their fine work during the pandemic we faced our wildfire disaster and our ice storm disaster. So I want to thank our public health team led by Philip Mason Joyner, who you heard earlier tonight. This is a great accomplishment. Not every county public health achieves this accreditation. So thank you to our team for their fine work. That is my update tonight, Chair. Thank you.
I think that's just wonderful in this time of COVID and extremely challenging when basically our hands are tied because of the state leadership and direction. We are under the authority of that, and maybe if the counties, had been allowed what has been charged to them in Oregon law, and that is the county delivers the health services to its people, but we've been usurped in that authority. It's been taken away from us through executive orders, which I'm not fond of at all. Just like our vaccinations were shipped to the convention center. And I'm still fighting to bring what is due to Clackamas County back to Clackamas County, and I've been fighting that for a month. And maybe they're starting to hear. And I refer to my meeting with the tri-chairs, as we call them. It's the three of us, and we get on and we talk for an hour, and I have to say it's really good. We pretty much agree. But when you're Clackamas County and you're coupled with tethered to the two largest counties, Clackamas County is the third largest county by population, not by geography, mind you, sometimes you have to yell the louder. And so I think as chair, that's what I do, is try to represent the best I can of all constituents in regard to public health, emergency management, and trying to work with all of our officials and guide us through these trying times. Now it's time for Commissioner communication. I believe up first is Commissioner Schell.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Last week, we heard from some members of Clackamas County regarding the Bull Run filtration plant. I had a very good briefing from the Department of Transportation and Development on Wednesday morning on the background, and a lot of questions were answered. I've contacted some of the people out there and answered their questions. There is one issue that DTD is going to look at, and that is the approach road off Bluff Road in Clackamas County across the county line into the project. But I think I got one more phone call to make, and that situation should be put to rest. All the questions anybody has out there on the filtration plant need to go through the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners and the Water Bureau in Portland. Okay, next thing is I was late tonight, Chair, because I just came from the Fair Board meeting in Canby. And they're anxious to plan a fair and a rodeo this year, and they have some concerns about they have some concerns about restrictions from the governor's office about how many people might attend, and attendance is an important thing because it drives profitability.
Right.
Last year, when we didn't have a fair, the Board of Fairgrounds and Event Center just about went under, and if it wasn't for the CARE Act help, they would be in a bad situation. So maybe we can take a look at encouraging the governor to let us do a fair and a rodeo without any restrictions this year. It's very important. And then we had a question from the gentleman about the vehicle registration fee. The chair brought that up last week for a look at by the board. We didn't have the votes to recall it, but we are going to put out some information to the cities and across the county, to the CPOs, about the vehicle registration fee, what it brings in, what the effects will be if it's withdrawn, and then have some public hearings on it, and you have not seen the end of this yet. So then finally, I'd like to make a comment on this beer and wine tax that's in Salem.
How large is that?
Which one?
The beer and wine tax.
Well, it's a 70% increase, Chair, over what the current taxation on beer and wine in Oregon. But my comment I want to make on it is this. In a state that just passed Measure 110, we're increasing the taxes on beer and wine, something that we have at the dinner table, something that's not necessarily abused. When we, again, are at the end of a year of extreme hardship, and I'm with Chair Smith in that any tax at this time is not a good thing. And so I urge citizens to contact your legislators and complain about this 70% increase on beer and wine. And also look at all the other legislation that's in Salem. Much of it is not conducive to a healthy Oregon. And finally, I look forward to our county administrator's report on the Veteran Affairs Council, and we'll take whatever action we need to take on that. Thank you, Chair Smith.
Yeah, sir. No, sir, I've tried to, sir, I really appreciate you folks. I'm trying to run the business meeting, and you're not the only folks that we've had to do this with, and yeah, that's okay. Come back and, voice more opinions. I will address something that Commissioner Scholl did about the fair. I've been getting requests too, are we going to have a fair? And it's just not the rodeo on that. It's the 4-H and the showing of animals that our youth engage in, and it's one of the most positive programs that we can have. I'm getting calls too, are we going to be able to have the fair this year? And maybe that's something, Gary, we can engage our staff to move forward on. We just don't know. And we just don't know. You could plan for the fair, and then all of a sudden, the governor will come in, put a kibosh on it, and look, everything just went out the window, all that time, money, and effort that go into it. I certainly would like to be able to be in a situation where we could have a fair, a rodeo, have 4-H, the animals, have the judging, have the participation, and all those wonderful activities on that. Commissioner Savas, you're up next.
Thank you. First off, before I get started, I will say hopefully, if we end early enough, I will remain in the meeting. I do have another follow-up meeting here shortly, in short time, so I'll be as brief as I can here. This Tuesday, we discussed some of our rules and how we operate as a board, and we reviewed that. And in the packet, on our Tuesday packet, were towards the tail end of the packet, were two documents that were approved by the Board of County Commissioners last year. That would be Commissioner Bernard, Commissioner Hummerston, Commissioner Fisher, Commissioner Schrader, and myself. And, in this conversation we've had recently about how we should operate or whether we should continue to take a strong punitive approach towards Mr. Scholl, or whether we do that with Commissioner Fisher or Scholl or whoever it may be. And a couple Tuesdays ago, I really suggested that, maybe the two of them should meet in private and discuss this. And here's why. This is what the board, I'm just going to take a couple excerpts out of the ground rules. The past board, and actually on Tuesday, this board approved. So these are approved by two different boards. And these are just some excerpts. Ground rules for meeting conduct. Listen to hear and understand. Recognize that we all have great passion for our role in the county. Value one another's communication and styles. Assume positive intent. Uphold the decision of the board, even if as an individual we disagree. Honor our role to serve the public and honor the role of the county administrator to manage operations. Assume individual accountability for attendance, preparation for meetings, respecting all roles, and ensuring the continuity of governance capability. I want to highlight this piece. Communicate with respect and efficiency. I'll read that again. Communicate with respect and efficiency. This will be demonstrated by waiting to be recognized to speak, not interrupting. Keeping thoughts succinct without repetition. Allowing others to express their perspective and summarizing and underscoring decision points. Towards the bottom of the page, on number 8, it says praise in public and critique in private, both to staff and each other. And early on, I think it was January, February, I made the comment that we should do such because I was raised that way. I was raised that you don't criticize people disparage people in public or in a setting with other people. You kind of just do that off into in a private room. And I would say that that probably takes a lot more courage than it does perhaps to do it in public for some. Courage is not the issue here. It's really about decorum. It's really about respect. It's really about the discourse and how we operate. And if we're not going to follow these rules that we all agree to, past board, current board, if we're not going to follow these rules, then we will devolve into something that I don't think is respectful, and I don't think it's something that the citizens in this county expect us to devolve into. So I just want to remind people who are critical of whether or not we or how we treat one another or what we should do from here on out. I just think that this is something that's, I was raised to be professional and courteous. I strive to do that. And again, I just ask people to take a look at what we're doing. We did agree on Tuesday to add a few things to this item, but everything I read was approved again on Tuesday and will continue to be part of how we operate. So with that, I will conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Fisher, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Yeah, Commissioner Savas, I wanted to applaud you as well. I don't know if you could hear that there was some applause in the chamber here. So I want to thank everyone who is here today, and I have been really seeking and wanting this engagement. I spent much time reviewing over 600 emails calling for Mark Scholl to resign, and there were very few that had asked for him to continue. So, JR, I'm going to take you up on it, and I would love to schedule a time and sit down with you and have you look at some of these posts and tell me how you see them, because I think that might educate me and help me to see another perspective. And so I really appreciate so much you being here. And Joe, I hate to say it, but we have a history together, even though we, from common people that we know, and I really would like to continue some time with you. And Danette, I don't know you at all, but I would really appreciate the opportunity to also connect with you. I really appreciate so much you all being here. So thank you. Nope, we're not going to do that because, nope, we're going to talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll take it outside.
Nope, and I can't do it after this meeting, but I want to make sure we have your information, we can do that. So, yep, it's good, thank you. So
Yeah,
with
thank
that,
you.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the listening session that we had last evening for our families and children. Commissioner Schrader and I hosted. Commissioner Savas was in the audience, and it was excellent. I just have to say, it was an hour-and-a-half session, and our constituents called and shared what was on their mind, what was on their hearts when it comes to our families and our children. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about just hearing the voices and the struggle, because our kids, this marks almost a year that they have not been in school, and our children have really, really struggled. There are stories of parents talking about children losing education, losing social skills, children with disabilities that basically haven't received any education at all over this time because they can't receive the special services that they need. We heard from experts in our community that are very concerned, and this is something, board, we have to think about and have to partner with other agencies about. Very concerned about the expected rise in child abuse cases when children go back to school and the eyes and the ears of our teachers are seeing our kids, and when they get settled and they get comfortable, and then things are going to be shared, and it's going to be very challenging for our community and for our kids. So we just need to be ready for that. I was really thankful for that. The other piece that is just amazing, there is a group of parents here in Clackamas County. They started an effort. It was called Clack to School, and I've been following these parents and connecting and engaging with them because I've been very concerned through this pandemic that we haven't done more to provide individual education to kids in small settings and really help our youth. But this group is amazing. So people out there, if you're concerned about kids going to school, go to Facebook, look up this group, join it, and just get the information. So Julie was one of the participants last night, and she talked a lot about different guidance and different expertise regarding what will work in classrooms. I had another conversation with her after reading some of the information that she provided this afternoon. And one of the issues that is out there for debate is how much space do children need to be educated safely? The CDC recommends 6 feet. Other places around the world and other studies have said it can be safely done with 3 feet. And according to Julie now, she said that she had just heard that the CDC is re-looking at that guidance. And so, excellent listening session, and excellent not only because of all of the information, but the deepening of the relationships. And when I was talking to Julie tonight, I just said, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us, because as elected leaders, we are as effective in our advocacy as the stories from our residents, our constituents, our children. We're as effective in these roles as the stories. So to hear straight from people in our community, it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And so with that, I'm sure there'll be more to come with listening sessions, but it was really great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
How you doing, Chair?
Fine. How are you, Martha? I see that you're on a lake swimming around. No, I'm just joking.
It's pretty much been death by meeting all day, and I am going to be committing to getting physically in more often, because I think it's time. But today, wow, what a day. Well, let me get started with a few things here. I want to talk about the Journey Down the Clackamas, which is a year-long conference with the Clackamas River Basin Council. We had our first meeting. Oh, there we go. Yay, Christine, love you for that. We had our first meeting on, March 9th, and it was a total introduction to the watershed. And I want to thank my friend Dave Bugney, who talked brilliantly about it. The next one is going to be, I have it written down here somewhere, March 23rd. And on March 23rd, there we go, it's Geology 1, an introduction to the Western Oregon Regional Geology, and that's going to be Sheila Alfson, Portland State University. So please go to the Clackamas River Basin Council website, register. This will tell you everything you need to know about the biology, geology, and natural history of our big watershed here, the Clackamas River. So absolutely great. Now, the other thing I ended up doing recently is, you know, that by training, believe it or not, I'm an entomologist. So I have signed up with our extension service because Chair Smith and I are very, very, very big supporters of extension and food sheds and agriculture. And I'm going to be one of the folks working on what they call the Oregon Bee Atlas with OSU Extension. So we had our orientation last night. Bottom line is I'm going to get all my collecting gear sent to me as part of the class. And I'll be out there working on the Oregon Bee Atlas with about 50 to 60 other people. And I'm really looking forward to it because it brings me back to my entomology roots, and it reminds people, no bees, no food. And this is pretty serious stuff. So as time goes on and I'm out in the field and I'm working on this project with our extension office and also NREC, which is our folks up here in the north end of the county that are kind of our anchor and berry research, farming research, entomology research, that I'll have some more slides and some interesting tales to tell. The other thing I want to mention is, yes, Commissioner Fisher and I worked together and had a listening session last night. Commissioner Savas was in the audience and listened to that as well. And we heard from a number of folks about how kids are coping with COVID. And I also had an opportunity to talk to our superintendents, who really, really, they're really working extremely hard. I mean, our superintendents have been under the gun from the get-go. They have parents that want their kids back to school. They're trying to meet all the requirements. They're trying to come up with protocols on how to do that safely. They're trying to come up with strategies that help kids in early learning as well as after-school programs. And I told them that I welcomed their input. I was glad that I had a chance to speak with them, as well as the other folks from a lot of our nonprofits who called in to talk about the fine work that they are doing with our young people. The other thing is I am working with Commissioner Schell on veterans issues. Basically, I'm a liaison to the Veterans Committee meeting, and I was there. And it got a little tense, but it was an okay discussion, I think. And I think it was an important one to have. And I'm looking forward to continuing that work with veterans, with my colleagues, because I feel that it's my job as a commissioner to work with all of my colleagues that sit on this board. I have to put other things aside, but it's my job as your commissioner and as someone who loves this county to work with the people who have been elected to serve. There are other recourses. If people think that there needs to be a change, then so be it. But that is a separate process. Right now, my job is to work with Commissioner Savas, Commissioner Fisher, Commissioner Scholl, and Chair Tooley Smith, because that's what I've been elected to do. So I did want to tell you some veterans information I have. My good friend Laura Edmonds, who is the chair of the North Clackamas Chamber, gave me the honor of inviting me, and Tracy was there with me too, to meet Major General Darrell Guthrie. And he is the commanding general of the 88th Readiness Division. Very important guy. He basically takes care of readiness all the way from the Midwest out here to the Pacific Northwest. And he came to visit us at Camp Withacum, where we had a conversation with him about what they can do to help us with veterans and what we can do to help augment what they do. It was a fantastic conversation. And I really want to thank my friend, Laura Edmonds, for inviting me to be there, because she knows that veterans issues are near and dear to my heart. So as your commissioner, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to continue to work with everybody that I need to work with in order to make this county the great place it is destined to be, in my opinion. Other than that, I have to tell you, I was on meetings all day with the National Association of Counties. I attended the large urban county caucus. I actually did attend the Veterans Committee meeting. I'm a member of the National Association's Veterans Committee. And we had a wonderful presentation on Elizabeth Dole's foundation on how to help the caregivers of veterans and their families. And it was pretty fantastic. And I hope I can share some of that information with my colleagues. And like I said, it's been pretty much one meeting after another. I encourage everybody to go to the National Association of Counties, because they give us not only information about what's happening in Washington, D.C., but they bring all the counties together so we can all get together and work together on what needs to happen. And during the membership meeting, we had quite the update on the new stimulus package that is coming forward. And the National Association on their website is going to give us piece by piece what that may mean for counties across the United States of America. So in any case, that's been my week. And Chair Smith, thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Well, of course, very much so. Well, it's been an interesting last several weeks. Commissioner Savas and I have been engaged in conversations with our national delegation in Congress on a huge lobby effort and to try to fund our county's top priorities. With that in mind, I think many of them did not realize of our 3 declared disasters, emergency disasters, and so I've been begging literally begging to refill our coffers for our wildfires, for our COVID relief, and then the ice storm situation. Good news, the rescue package coming out of Congress, it looks like, knock on wood, Clackamas County will get a direct payment of $81 million for COVID relief. Yes, we desperately need that. The rub with that is, however, it cannot be used retroactively, which is where we need the most assistance, because we've had businesses who have shuttered their doors that need to be made whole. I don't know how we're going to look at that, Gary. Of course, we're going to be making plans. I don't want to make any promises here today on what that money can be used for, because frankly, we don't know. The only thing we heard today from Senator Wyden was that March 8th going forward, and I says that's problematic for my county. And the reason is because Clackamas County was tethered, you know, with the 2 largest counties. Yet we have remained a population under 500,000, so therefore we didn't get the same allocations. We received 17 million when we should have received 72 million for all the efforts that we have gone into. So it's been extremely problematic for us to do that. We cannot deficit spend, and nor would I recommend that. You just can't put yourself or the county in that type of situation. We also lobbied for the widening of I-205 and the retrofitting of Abernathy Bridge for earthquake preparedness. Keeping in mind that the new administration wants an infrastructure bridge package to come out to help America's highways and bridges. It looks like they're going to try really hard to do that. I talked with our congressional offices on that, and the Undersecretary of Transportation, he seems really hopeful that our package could be funded, because it's really the only shovel-ready project in the entire state that they can just pop the money into and go for. They're thinking that they're going to roll out in the next 6 months, in the first 6 months of the Biden administration, and they're going to front-load everything on that. I think probably we're looking at some deficit spending, because there's a lot of spending coming out of Congress. But I'm not going to turn down any money from my county where we so desperately need transportation projects. The other alternative that some agencies are pushing is tolling. I am very much opposed to tolling. I think it's disproportionately discriminatory to say Clackamas County is going to have the only toll in the state of Oregon. I think that's terrible public policy, so we're working very hard to realize that. Another project that Martha Schrader has worked on since I left the commission, I worked on it when I was here, is the reopening of the Willamette Falls locks. The United States Corps of Engineers has agreed to transfer ownership. However, it needs to be in working condition. It does us no good to have a locks that doesn't work, and I believe it's a federal statute or law, or wherever you want to call them, that must be, the repair is about $14 million. We're hoping either they give us in good working repair or transfer the locks with the $14 million allocation. Right now, I believe in the Oregon legislature, and Martha, you can help me on this. I think we got a report. They had a hearing on it. Would you brief us?
Yeah, they did. We're going to be moving forward with it. We hope to get that pulled together, Chair. But without your previous work, we wouldn't have been this far.
Thank you. They were going to try to form a corporation. Is that it for the management of the locks? Is that right?
Public corporation.
Yeah, good, a public corporation. Well, that is just really hopeful. What I'm doing is similar to what Martha's doing in her private time, and then I'm taking emergency management training and classes so I can help better manage our county with our wonderful dedicated leaders, so I can learn how to do this. I intend on becoming some certification if that's available. I've started that. I was delayed because of our third emergency. Didn't have time to take classes. But the unit I'm on now is Incident Command. And when we had the forest fires, I was lucky enough to visit our incident command down here right across the parking lot with our sheriff's department, and I saw them in action. And it really touched me, the efficiency with that going on. And I'm learning about incident command, and I've also learned why the military has so many ranks available to them. That makes sense to me now, because we have to have a definite chain of command. It has to be very precise. We can't have people running around doing their own things, and there's definitely a pecking order that needs to be observed, and in Clackamas County, we're certainly going to try to do that. One of the committee liaison assignments that I have created that I want to follow through with, I've created a committee of our commissioners, and it's called Emergency Management Coalition Groups. It may sound like a lot. It's the Emergency Management Coalition Groups. And when I viewed the fires in South Clackamas County, I was invited by a lot of people to come out, and I listened to them, and I saw the pictures, and I took pictures, and they're posted on my Facebook page. And they told me what they thought was lacking in that. And had it not been for the volunteer efforts of the people who stood up, literally with their shovels and their axes to stop the fire, the loss would have been greater than what it was. People used their tractors and their bulldozers at great expense to themselves to save what could have been a worse tragedy. And with that in mind, the idea came to me, there's a lot of volunteers who would like to serve on this committee with our commissioners and learn. I've had 2 meetings yesterday. God, I can remember it was yesterday. Talk about dying by life of meetings. I'm doing the same thing as the other commissioners are. I can't even remember. I must have had 10 meetings today. And I don't remember what I did yesterday because that was yesterday. But a wonderful group of nonprofits who are just begging and want to help us with the emergency management response. And we learned a lot during the ice storm by setting up shelters. We called in the National Guard because we needed wellness checks. I felt it was very important that we have wellness checks on our communities who were without power a week and then without power for 2 weeks, which meant they had no heat in freezing cold temperatures, made sure they had water and food and the basic essential elements. That was kind of a scary decision, to be honest with you, because I had never done anything like that before. So when I was left down to deciding, I prayed about it a lot. I listened to my inner voice, and I just went with my gut on that. And I called Governor Brown, and I said, Governor, we're in a situation here, and we need it, and we need you to pay for it, because we have no money. And she responded, Tootie, if you need it, and we'll worry about the money later. Well, she has agreed to pay for it and help us out further, and I'm very grateful to her assistance on that. And so we had National Guard come in. We had, 18 or 20 guardsmen come in, and they were just wonderful. I think something that I learned from that experience with the Sheriff's Department and our SARS, our search and rescue, was the guards people went out to these homes and they were met with such gratitude and caring. They couldn't believe that somebody in a uniform knocked on their door and wanted to help them. And they almost cried. I've had so many stories that has come back to me of how grateful the people were that we were able to go out and at least try to help them. And so that was a decision. Not all decisions, are as easy as you might think. Most of the decisions that we make here and as chair are extremely hard, but I can guarantee you they're very thought-felt, and they're coming from a position of love for all of my constituents in Clackamas County. With that in mind, I think that this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming to testify, and we'll see you next week.